Good evening. The City Property Committee will commence our meeting. This meeting can also be viewed on fatv.org by choosing Government Live Stream on Comcast Channel 99 or Verizon Channel 37. This meeting will be open to the public. Persons who wish to participate remotely in the public forum portion of the meeting may request a remote attendance meeting link by contacting the City Clerk at cityclerk@fitchburgma.gov prior to noon on the day of the meeting. I'm Sally Cragen. I'm the chair of City Property. I would like to welcome everyone to the Legislative Building tonight. We have a pretty full agenda, and I would like to begin by asking if someone can make a motion that we will take 0 Sawmill Pond Road out of order. It is the last item on our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so moved and second. I am also taking minutes, so if I ask people to repeat themselves, it's strictly for the benefit of clarity. Okay, and then Sam is all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay, so we will begin. And again, do we have anyone here who'd like to speak on behalf? Sue, Tom? No, thank you. Okay. All right, so Mr. Skorofsky, please share. This is on...
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Ma'am.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Anthony wants to talk.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I just wanted to note briefly, per what we heard from FATV, that this evening,
Right.
in particular, the meeting actually will not be on the live broadcast stations due to a scheduling conflict, but it will still be available on FATV's on-demand service.
Thank you. All right, we will have item 034-22. Tom Skorofsky, our Executive Director of Community Planning and Development, will be requesting us, the City Council, to declare the following parcel as surplus property: 0 Sawmill Pond Road, Assessor's Map, S53,6,0. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. And good evening, councilors, and good evening, residents of the Sawmill Pond Condominium Complex. When this property first came in front of the Property Committee back in the spring, there was a discussion about a few outstanding items that ultimately the committee decided to continue this to another meeting of the Property Committee, and has wanted to run by those items briefly. Number one, there was a question as to whether or not there was a commercial use that could be permitted on the site because it's in a rural residential neighborhood, but had a permit through our planned unit development, special permit from the planning board that allowed for commercial use on the site. And I'll start there with that clarification from our zoning determination officer. The building commissioner, Mark Barbadoro, had informed us that not only is it commercial use viable at the site per the special permit decision, but it's actually, given that special permit, it is the use absent a modification of the special permit that would be required at the site. And the reason why is because in these planned unit developments, there's another one on South Street where we have a similar situation. It's permitted as a full development, including the residential and the commercial. And in both cases, the commercial is kind of used as the carrot for the residential developer to say, you know, we understand we're bringing in additional burden on the residential tax rolls, but we provide this as a commercial development opportunity for the city. And so when a developer, you know, builds the residential up but not the commercial, it can feel to the city like a bit of a bait and switch, like here's what I said I was going to do, but now I've got my housing, so I don't need to worry about that anymore. Which is not to say it can't change, and I'll get to that when I review the RFP in a second. But that was the first outstanding item, and that's the resolution of that question. And then the others were concerns brought up by the folks at Sawmill Pond about tying into their pump station and vehicular access to the site through Sawmill Pond condos. So I tried to resolve all of those items within the RFP that has been revised here. And I did that in a few key ways. So first of all, if you look at page 2 of the RFP in the reuse restrictions, I added some language that pertained to both of these items. And I would note, I made an additional edit yesterday that I sent out to Councillor Cragen, and I believe went out to the board. So I want to make sure you're reading the right document. But in the third paragraph, it says, the project contains a few important reuse restrictions. For one, the property cannot tie into the Sawmill Pond condominium's pump station to service its utility needs, nor can it allow for vehicular access through the Sawmill Pond condominium. Neither of those would be allowed without a vote of the majority approval by the Sawmill Pond Condominium Association. And I know there were going to be some folks present today, and I'd be happy to hear their comments on that particular clause. I did share it with some members yesterday via email. The reason I put that in there about the majority vote is one could think of certain uses where perhaps they would like to have vehicular access, or they would maybe to a lesser degree the tying to the pump station. But I think then it really takes it out of the city's hands and it puts it in the hands of the association based on the use that we get through a proposal. And then secondly, it says the property is currently permitted for a 6,400 square foot commercial building. Where any use allowed on site that differed from this use, a modification would be needed from the existing special permit. This modification would be sought through the Fitchburg Planning Board. This is possible but not guaranteed. Were a non-commercial use to be the winning proposal, the city would allow the proposer to seek planning board approvals prior to closing. So we would sign, a purchase and sale agreement. They could do their due diligence before we close on the site. So it leaves open the possibility of a non-commercial development, but also is clear to any proposer that per the special permit decision, that's the first step unless the permit is modified. And then on page 4, project plan, it lays out the various scenarios from highly advantageous to unacceptable. The highly advantageous would be for a commercial space in keeping with the special permit decision. The second use would be a community-oriented use. The third would be residential home ownership. And then the fourth is a use that does not fit within the character of the condominiums and does not conform to one of the aforementioned uses shall be deemed unacceptable. So those were the major changes that I made based off of the feedback from the committee and the residents, and I'm happy to hear any input or thoughts on the matter.
Councillor Zarella.
If Madam Chair is willing, I would like to inquire of the residents whether this has addressed their concerns.
Yeah, please.
My name is Pat Doyle. I'm currently president of the trustees there for Sawmill Pond. And yes, we're very pleased about the way that the RFP was written, and the relieves us of the potential liability of the tie-in to the pump system, which is 20 years old and 20-plus years old, and really can't support any additional use. So that pretty much sums it up.
Excellent.
And we thank Tom for his attention to those details that we were very pleased to see.
Glad to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And in that case, that was really the only thing that I wanted to check up on. I'm also very pleased that, not that I expected anything less, but very pleased that Tom was able to work productively to address those concerns. That is the model that we're looking to promote here in Fitchburg, and you've been at the forefront of it, so thank you.
Appreciate that. And thank you all for your support.
I yield the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Squalier, questions for Tom or for Mr. Doyle?
Thank you, Tom. This written out RFP, it totally handles everything that we had discussed in the previous meeting, and it's very clear. I appreciate it very much. I just have two little changes.
Is it where I mentioned Eddie Lunenburg on like page 8?
Yes.
Okay.
That one. And then also on page 1, it says the city makes O representation. I assume it should be no. That's the only thing I found.
Okay, thank you.
Everything else looked great.
Yeah, and I must apologize, Councilor Squalia, because I sent you guys the email, but I didn't send you the most recent downloaded edition, and I sent that off this afternoon, so you may
we
have
got
that.
it.
The most recent one still had that one mistake. I noticed it as I was walking in here this evening, but appreciate it.
All right, do we hear a motion on, we're approving the RFP, or just we're approving the declaration of surplus property, at which point
Make a motion, we
then,
accept.
yes, okay.
Yes,
Move to
it's-
accept. Thank you, Councilor Boishman. Second is from Councilor Squalia. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, congratulations. Moving on, next steps. And you
We'll
were very,
certainly keep the association in the loop, the trustees.
Excellent.
that's great.
Thank
coming.
you.
All right, returning to our regular schedule, we will begin. We will take, the next portion of our agenda is item 164-22, and we have Treasurer Ann Cervantes to have the following properties declared as excess and designate to the side yard sales program. And I think I'm going to turn this over to you, and we will, this is one item on our agenda. Is that actually customary, Councilor Zarella, that we have multiple items as one item, so then when we are taking our vote, we take them as a bundled vote?
It is fairly common, however, as with any multiple vote where the parts are not interdependent,
Yep.
At the request of any member, it usually ends up getting taken separately if there's one that someone wants to pull out from the list or anything. But otherwise, there's no problem with taking them all together.
Okay, good to know. Question, Councilor Boishman.
Well, to save a lot of time, I'd like to pull 0 Clarendon Street, 110 Fairmont Street, and 137 Blossom Street.
Okay. So shall we discuss those first, since you would like them pulled?
Yeah, I'd like to have them pulled, yes.
All right, so I think how we would do this is, Ms. Cervantes, if you would be so kind as to in order, 0 Clarendon, 110 Fairmount, and then 137 Blossom Street, and then we'll move on to 12 Martel and 223 Mechanic Street, if that's all right.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have a presentation individually on
Sure.
each property. These are properties that the city foreclosed on last year through the land or low value process, through the DOR. They are small vacant lots that are not buildable, and they could be of use to abutters if combined with the abutting property. So that is why I'm asking that they be referred to the side yard sales program.
Okay, any comments on 0 Clarendon Street? Councilor Squalia, followed by Councilor Boishman.
Yes, so Councilor Bushman and I were both contacted by the woman across the street from 0 Clarendon Street, and she would be interested in, she's been maintaining that property for some time, and she'd be interested to have that property so that there'd be parking for her residents. However, if we declare this to the side yard sales program, then across the street wouldn't be eligible to acquire this property, correct?
Correct.
So what would be the appropriate motion in order to suggest a more appropriate venue in order to allow the neighboring properties that might be able to use this property for parking?
You mean the process to dispose of it, or do you mean?
Yes.
It could be auctioned, and there could also be an RFP process. Those are the other two options.
Okay, Councilor Boishman.
So you're saying that we can do an RFP? Because I was under the impression that once we pull it out of a side yard sale, it goes out to the public, and they have a right to come and bid on it.
If the city auctions it, yes, they have an opportunity to bid on it. If it goes out to RFP, that is, it's also sort of a bid process, but people are giving proposals to the city. So various people would have an opportunity to bid on it that way.
Well, may I ask Tom a question then, since he's the planning department there? On this particular issue, that the reason why we've been working on it since it started with Calvin Brooks was the city treasurer. On the lady that we're talking about owns an apartment building across the street, and she has absolutely no parking whatsoever. And they use that for parking. And she told me, because she maintains her property, that they plan on maintaining it. They haven't invested any money in the lot because they didn't own it. And this is why she asked me to pull it. Oh, she even got a hold of you, I think, at one time, or Calvin Brooks. And she even called up the people in California and on that. And they need it because they already got told by some of their tenants that they were moving because they were tired of getting tickets. And that's the reason why I pulled that one out for that main purpose, for the parking for his situation. It's an ideal location. It's right across the street, and it's perfect. And I want to know that you think it's better for me to pull it, to go in an auction or an RFP.
I mean, I think, as Ann mentioned, both are competitive opportunities for the public to bid on the project. One is, I would say that an RFP is a little bit more complicated than an auction, where auction is price is the single motivating factor. RFP, you've got to put together, you know, a project plan, financials, and a full proposal to submit. There's a little bit more complexity involved in it, and is generally, I would say, not as maybe appropriate for smaller parcels like this. And it's also, it's difficult to put out an RFP per Massachusetts procurement law with just where you're basically doing it for one person. It's sort of non-competitive in a sense where we're saying, you know, putting it out for one sole purchaser, essentially, who would be the willing buyer. Whereas it might be more appropriate where price is that motivating factor, and then price can kind of guide that decision-making. That would be my recommendation. I guess the short answer would be auction.
Auction it?
I think so.
That's the way I was thinking. I think that's the only fair way of doing it.
Okay, Councilor Zarella.
Thank you. My only concern with putting it out to auction, and I suspect one of the reasons that we originally stopped putting side yard sale properties out to auction, is because once we put it out to auction, we can't control who gets to bid. Now, logically, you would think that only people who are abutters or across the street would have any interest in bidding. Although, if someone knows that the property is in demand for some reason, we, you know, if we make a habit of doing this, we could start to see speculators.
That's also
You know,
true.
someone who buys the property at auction, then turns around to the woman across the street and says, I'll sell it to you for twice the amount, because I know you need parking. That would be my only concern, is that an auction, unlike the side yard sales program, doesn't allow us to direct it to someone who actually has a genuine need. This does seem to be a peculiar, I don't want to say loophole because I know why we did it, but it seems to be a use case that the side yard sales process doesn't address. And maybe that's a conversation we can have down the road, but I wouldn't oppose putting it out to auction. I just have concerns.
Councilor Squillia, then Councilor Boishman.
If we put it out to if we put this property out to auction, does it, if we, you know, like, for example, with the side yard sales, it's $300 or $600 or whatever it is, and the previous taxes on the property are not applicable anymore, correct? If we put it to auction, is that same tax burden, the existing tax burden, eliminated from the property?
It is.
Okay.
Okay, Councilor Boishman.
I understand what you're saying, Council, over there at the end, but the lady knows that she is going to be bidding against, I made it very clear that somebody could come in here and bid.
Right.
And may want the property more than you. There's nothing the city or I can do about that. And she says, well, then I'm gonna go, I still want it, I need the property for my parking. How high she plans to go, I'm not gonna tell you. If it goes to 150,000, I know for a fact she's gonna walk away.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
Yeah, you know what I mean? She just wants it for parking, and so I'll go by, I believe the I believe the auction is the proper way to go, myself personally. You know, it'll be up to her and whoever else comes. But,
Yeah.
because I told her, there's no guarantees.
Okay,
Then I'll make a motion
all right, motion to
to
declare,
to deny the designation to side yard sales and recommend that it be put out to auction.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
One question though, for Ann.
hold on, well, we're in the middle of a motion. You want to withdraw your motion?
I think once we begin the vote, it can't be withdrawn anymore.
Okay. All right, in that case, you have a clarification question or a,
Yeah, I just want to know if when it goes out to auction,
okay, go ahead.
if it goes out to auction, will it go with, say, next month? Or when? When do you plan on that?
I couldn't tell you that. I would have to contact the auctioneer. I'm not sure we could get the auctioneer out here just to do one parcel,
That's what I
especially
told her.
a small, low-value parcel. So I think
Yeah,
it
I
would,
think you would do about 5.
I think it would have to wait until we have others.
All right.
Okay, yeah, that was my understanding, that the tax lien, when we spoke, the tax liens occur in the spring, and then the auction is more likely to be in the fall, or have I got that?
That's been the recent
The
practice.
pattern.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion, we have a second to declare Zero Clarendon, to deny the designation to side yard sales for Zero Clarendon Street and put it out to auction. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so Zero Clarendon Street is literally kicked to the curb. The next item that we wanted to pull out is 110 Fairmount Street. Treasurer Cervantes?
I understand that 110 Fairmount actually abuts another city-owned property, and if combined, they could form a buildable lot, so it would probably be better to dispose of that in a different way than the side yard sale. And actually, the same thing with 137 Blossom, that actually abuts 2 other city-owned properties, so the same thing, the same reasoning there.
Okay, I did my best to drive by all of these properties, which definitely were a wide range of possibility and neighborhoods and all of that. And this seemed like an enormous parcel in comparison to the others. So I'd like to, before we get into questions, I'd like to ask Tom Skorofsky, do you have any comment on 110 Fairmount Street and also 137 Blossom Street, given the proximity to city properties, and is community development looking at those parcels as, potential, community development projects?
Yes, so Ann and I have spoken at length about both of these parcels, and she always does a great job of sending out the surplus declarations for us to consider whether something might be buildable, because often a small parcel by itself might look that way, but then you kind of zoom out the map and you see the connections. So 110 Fairmount, is over 9,000 square feet just with the 2 city-owned parcels side by side, and then there's another vacant parcel beside it that's privately owned. I would recommend that one be a request for proposal, just to Councilor Zarella's point, having some more control in that neighborhood over what takes place there, I think would be for the benefit of the neighborhood, to make sure we have the right thing going in there and not just selling it to the highest bidder. And the other site on Blossom Street, it's 3 parcels altogether. It's about 13,000 square feet. It could actually be even parceled off into 2 single-family lots potentially. The tricky thing there is it's a pretty significant slope, but
Yeah.
that'd be a challenge as a side yard site. It'd be a challenge as an auction as well, at least in an RFP. We'll take a look at it and see if any good development proposals might come through. I think the slope will be the challenge there, but I think we've got to make our best effort to see if we find a willing buyer.
Okay, thank you, that's very clarifying. Question, Councilor Squillia?
Yep, that was just going to be my question. Would you recommend RFP? Because, the 3 parcels on Blossom, I would think we could combine those for an RFP process. All 3, 123, 124, 125,
I think so.
and then the 2 on Fairmount? Yeah.
Okay. Any further comments or questions from our subcommittee?
Move that we send 110 Fairmount Street and 137 Blossom Street to recommend RFP and not send to side yard sales.
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. So, 2 more exciting possibilities in Fitchburg. Thank you for that. We now return to 12 Martell Street, which is not as large. Oh, Counselor Zarella.
If there are no other concerns from fellow committee members on the remaining items, since we've been told that they are all otherwise just typical small non-buildable lots, I would suggest that we just move to a motion to designate them all to side yard.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
No, I got a question.
Oh, it was just a suggestion for a motion. I haven't actually made it yet.
Okay, thank you
I'm
for
willing
that.
to-
I just want to point out, again, I want to point out I know you have no control, it goes to a side yard sale, but I also want to point out that 12 Martell Street, the guy next door to that has been taking care of that piece of property for years until I let George from across the street use it for his garden, and he gave up because I told you this has trash all over. But Mr. Cruz has been taking it, and he took well good care. So I hope that gets into consideration. It wasn't the condos, it was Mr. Cruz that used to cut the grass and pick up the papers all the time.
May I just say something?
Please.
That is something that the side yard committee does consider if somebody's been taking care of a lot. So it is considered.
Yeah, but I just wanted to point out, if you go up there now, you say what Boschman said, he's been taking care of. If you go up there, you'll see barrels of the plants and everything else, and that's not his doing. That's my fault. I allowed the guy to go over there and plant a garden. I thought he was gonna rototill it and plant his garden. I didn't think he was gonna bring all junk from the neighborhood and put it there. So that's why. So I wanted to make it very clear on that.
Okay, so I think what we're, I'm just trying to figure out how to make note of this in the minutes. Okay, but again, with the resolution, one sec, with the vote, then that we would then be turning those over for the side yard sales, so then the abutters would be notified, do you have an interest, and then it would be the tax-free 300 or so.
For a residential property, it would be 300. I believe these are all residential, so.
Yeah, and in fact, I did see 12
Well,
Martell,
yes,
and I concur with Counselor Boschman.
What's that?
All right, Counselor Squelia, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just asking, Councilor Boschman had wanted to bring up 70 Clarendon, and I don't know if he still wanted to bring that up.
I did, I just want to make sure on 70 Clarendon, I talked to her earlier on 70 Clarendon Street. I want to make sure that the people that are involved in the side yard sale take a ride by. I do know the multifamily was using that piece of land over here, part of it, and in the front. They haven't been taking care of the back, I told you that, but they have been using it in the front as a place to sit down and do everything else. And they have made, the multifamily has, and I have no connection to them, I don't know who owns it, but they have been cutting the grass and doing that stuff. They haven't been taking care of the back of it, but the front of it, that you can see on the Blaze Court side, no. On the Clarendon Street side, yes.
Okay.
The multifamily has been taking care of it.
All right, do we hear, Counselor Zarella?
I was just going to note that as a general matter, when we're designating things to side yard sale, if there's something that the side yard sales committee needs to be aware of in considering these things, it may be better to bring that to the side yard sales committee when it meets, just to, save on time here at the
All right,
city property.
I have no, excuse me, Madam Chair, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
If I know when they meet. I don't know that, we never get a notice when they meet. I have never got a notice when they had a side yard sale meeting.
Okay, we'll find that out. Treasurer Cervantes, do we have a side yard sales committee meeting planned anytime soon?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. So do we hear a motion to declare the 12 Martell Street, 223 Mechanic Street, et cetera, to be as excess designated for side yard sales program?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
okay, so we've got, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. More for the side yard sales program to do. And this brings us to item 200-22, and we will hear about accepting the proposal of WCHR to purchase 80 Lunenburg Street as outlined in the enclosed petition. Thank you for a very complete petition, by the way. Tom, please tell us more.
Good evening, councilors. So this is a proposal to purchase and develop 80 Lunenburg Street, a large 1.3 acre vacant lot that we had out to RFP earlier this spring. The winning proposal and the only proposal was WCHR, Worcester Community Housing Resources, a Worcester-based nonprofit. And their proposal is to create townhouse-style homeownership opportunities, affordable homeownership for residents earning 100% of the median household income in the area. And they would be utilizing traditional financing, potentially a home loan from within my department at the city, and a new program through Mass Housing called the Commonwealth Builder Program, which is a program that is really intended to support homeownership development, affordable homeownership development, and really likes to target those resources within gateway cities like Fitchburg. So we've been working really hard to try to find a good project that might be a prime development for the Commonwealth Builder Program. It's exciting to get such a large amount of resources, in this case $250,000 per unit, to develop homeownership. We haven't seen resources like that for quite some time. So, you know, we've been talking to local developers about this program for a while. We're excited to see this proposal from a developer who's got a large portfolio throughout Worcester County and wants to get a foothold here in Fitchburg and wants to utilize a program we've been talking about for quite some time. So we're excited about the proposal. I'd be happy to talk through any of the particulars with folks on the committee here.
Councilor Boschman.
Tom, that area that we're proposing, that's Peter Batteries, so that would be what, commercial area?
Pardon?
Is that commercial, 80 Lunenburg Street right there?
It's neighborhood business district. So a mix of commercial and residential ultimately. And one thing, now that you mentioned Pete's Battery, I neglected to mention is the site has some significant environmental contamination. We've done the early phase work to sort of scope out what the cost of that work would be. And they've committed to do the remediation as part of this. Their estimate is about $400,000 worth of work, which is in the ballpark of the preliminary estimate we put together. So it also takes a significant liability off the city books and cleans a site that is currently a liability to that neighborhood and turns it into an asset. But yes.
My question to you, Tom, is this. As a city, and as I look at the city, we don't have a lot of commercial area. That's what I keep on hearing. And that's, to me, I know you only get one bid, but that's a prime piece of location for a business versus residential, wouldn't you think?
I mean, we're always looking at ways to bolster the commercial tax base and reduce burdens on the homeowners. And I was expecting to see commercial proposals as well. That being said, I think this fits neighborhood needs in two important ways. Number one, we do have a lot of commercial development along the Lunenburg Street and Main Street corridor that is currently either vacant or underutilized, and this would be new homeowners that could help, you know, bring new purchasing power to support local business. And the second thing is this is a neighborhood that's about 35% homeownership right now, and I think bolstering the homeownership rates within that neighborhood, opportunities to do this in neighborhoods like the College neighborhood here are really few and far between. And I think it's a great fit for the neighborhood in that respect.
How many bedrooms in each unit?
The concept plan that they proposed were 19 three-bedrooms, but it was strictly conceptual. I think if they were to this were to be accepted, we would work with them before closing on going through the planning board process to get all these, the permitting done before moving to closing. So it's strictly conceptual at this point.
Yeah, but so 19, you say 20, that's $100,000 in tax. It would cost the taxpayers if they had 3 bedrooms. You get kids going to public school, so $5,000 a head, right?
Ted?
So I think the larger issue, Councillor Boschman, is that this was put out for an RFP for both commercial and residential. There was one application that came back successfully, which was for residential. And I think that we let the market declare its hegemony in this particular situation, that no commercial entity showed an interest in a site that would need almost $500,000 worth of brownfields remediation, and that we do get to turn to the larger forces, which is the state and federal governments that do have the means to make this a viable site versus a, fairly exposed bit of blight right outside of Main Street. That is merely my observation.
Madam Chair, I understand what you're saying, but I'm also understanding the fact that the city of Fitchburg does not have a lot of commercial land for tax base. And city planner numerous times has told me, when I asked, why don't we allow housing at Kmart? And he said, why do we want to put housing at Kmart, get rid of our commercial base factors? And that's all I'm saying. If we're going to do it, I don't care. But I'm just saying we don't have a lot of commercial area or business area, and we're going to, sometime I wonder if we're missing out. Just because something didn't come up today, it could come up tomorrow.
I'd like to I'm not going to call a point of order because we are on the main topic of housing, but I love what you're saying about the fact that we need to kind of look at the city at several different levels. Tom Skorofsky and Treasurer Cervantes look at the city in a really precise, technical, three-dimensional way. Those of us who are residents see it another way. And I love the idea of a kind of conversation about, whether Fitchburg in terms of commercial versus residential and so forth. But again, that's a discussion for another day. But I love the observation, I really do. Councillor Squelia.
Thank you. Tom, so these are proposed to have affordable home ownership at 100, what was the number? 100% of the
100% of the median income.
100% of the median income. So those people would be eligible to purchase this home under some sort of, I assume,
The Commonwealth-
program through the
Correct.
Worcester.
Through mass housing.
Through mass housing.
So it's a deed-restricted home ownership. So it would need to be sold to somebody under a similar median household income. But again, 100% of the median income is market rate. So I think it's a good program that helps meet Fitchburg families where they are and produce that homeownership opportunity, and for years to come, ultimately.
Thank you. Do you know how long the deed restriction is on these townhouses?
They generally tend to be at least 30 years.
That's usually. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved. Congratulations, and congratulations to future homeowners in Fitchburg. I am very happy to see this. I believe that takes us to the end of our agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Before we do adjourn, we have a couple of announcements, which are Civic Days are upon us. And on Saturday night, July the 2nd, the Fitchburg Historical Society, which should be near and dear to us all, is having a Fitchburg Trivia Night, which begins at 6 o'clock at the Historical Society. You may buy tickets, which are $25 at the door. It will be very festive, and I imagine that it will be a cutthroat competition. Storyteller Todd Goodwin will be one of the competitors. We also, of course, have the block party beginning on Sunday, July 3rd at 4:30 until 10 o'clock, and we invite everyone, please come downtown. There are going to be multiple musical performances happening. There are going to be classic cars, so those of us who enjoy classic cars can just admire everything up at the Upper Common. Does anyone else on the subcommittee have any special near and dear Civic Days block party event they would like to showcase?
Works when it Sunday.
Fireworks at 10 PM on
10
Sunday night.
Sunday
Yes.
night.
And then, of course, the parade will begin at 10 a.m., and I look forward to seeing my colleagues right after the fire trucks, and invite all to bring their families to see the very best parade in the entire Commonwealth. And we have a motion and a second. Are we in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
All right, that's a wrap. Dan, we are all set. Thank you, everyone.